Hey, today's Bible reading devotion is found in Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6. And here we see Moses talking and having a conversation with Joshua. And Moses, through God's strength, has helped lead the Israelites out of captivity, out of slavery in Egypt, and they are now waiting to enter into the promised land. But because of Moses' disobedience, but also because of Israel's disobedience, they have wandered in this wilderness for 40 years, and they have just been there waiting to enter into the promised land. And finally, God is going to allow them to do that through Joshua. And here Moses is just commanding Joshua to remember who God is, and that God and God alone is the one that provides strength and courage. It is funny because you think about when Moses sent some spies into the promised land, and they came back, and Joshua and Caleb said, man, this land is flowing with milk and honey. This land is all that God has promised us to be. And yet the other spies said, yeah, but there's giants. Yeah, but there's whatever. And they just were so enthralled and so focused on what obstacles they faced, what obstacles that they thought they couldn't overcome, that they chose not to do what God commanded them to do, and that was to enter into the promised land. And yet Caleb and Joshua were there saying, but look at the goodness of God, and God will carry us through. Well, here Moses is reminding Joshua. Joshua, who was one of the ones who said, yeah, but look at what God provided. Remember what God has done. Let's enter into this promised land. Moses is giving Joshua just a reminder of those feelings that Joshua had early on, and reminding Joshua that God is the one that's going to carry him through, that God is the one that's going to provide strength, that God is the one who's going to provide courage. And he says, Joshua, be strong and be courageous. Don't tremble. Don't fear at what you're going to encounter. Know that God is going to carry you through. He's not going to fail. He's not going to forsake you. He is going to do as he has promised. It's funny that it's taken Moses this long to really recognize or re-recognize that God's going to do something great, that God's promises always are fulfilled. And yet Moses didn't get to enter into the promised land. You know, I think sometimes we, because of our weakness, because of our sin, I think sometimes we say that God is great, that God's plan is best, but yet we don't follow through and truly live that way. Moses is telling Joshua, live a fearless life in God. Let God be your strength. Let God be your courage. Press on into the promised land as you are faithful to be obedient to God. I think Moses, when he's saying these words, he's reflecting upon, man, I remember when I was there and that burning bush commanded me, and I tried to make those excuses, but yet God pushed me forward. And I remember standing before Pharaoh and just saying, listen, God says, let my people go. And I remember standing before the Red Sea thinking, man, what in the world? But yet God let us pass. But then I think Moses also remembers, man, I missed this opportunity because I didn't trust God completely. And I listened to other voices instead of listening to the Lord. And Moses, as he is just telling Joshua here, Joshua, be strong and courageous. Let God carry you through. May we, as God's church today, remember that God is always going to carry us through when we trust in Him. When we depend solely upon Him, we find our strength. We find our courage. May we have courage and strength in following God. Have a great day.